Cover my son's college, my brother ordered, handing me a $15,000 bill. Dorms, laptop, meal plan. I said, not happening. Days later I heard him tell Dad, don't worry, after Christmas dinner he'll pay. Dad nodded, that's his role. So I changed the plans. On December 25th they went crazy when they found out. My name's Grace, I'm 34, no kids, never married, and I make decent money as a systems analyst. I have a nice place in Durham, North Carolina, a paid-off car and no debts. Sounds like a stable life, right? That's exactly why my family treats me like their personal A-team. This started 2 months before Christmas. I got a text from my older brother, Dennis. No, hey, or, how are you? Just, cover my son's college. Dorms, laptop, meal plan. Comes to about $15,000. Need it before December ends. I laughed. Then realized he was serious. Dennis has always been arrogant. He got a girl pregnant at 20, married her in a courthouse, and spent the next decade drifting between jobs, constantly between gigs, and borrowing money he never returned. His son Caleb is 18 and honestly a good kid. But Dennis? He's been leeching off our parents for years and lately decided I was his new target. I texted back, not happening. No reply. Just silence for 3 days. Then I got wind of something. A friend of mine works at the same gym my dad goes to. She overheard him chatting with Dennis after their workout. Dennis said, don't worry, after Christmas dinner she'll pay. She always does. And my dad? He nodded and said, that's her role. Her role. As in me. Grace. The walking wallet. The good little sister who owes it to the family for having it easy. They say I don't have a husband or kids, so what do I even need money for? I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I smiled when they invited me to Christmas dinner. Said I'd bring dessert and a few gifts. My mom was thrilled. I was polite. Even helped Dennis's wife buy a dress online for the holidays, pretending I didn't know what they were all planning. But while they were getting ready for a generous check after turkey and ham, I was changing the rules of the game. On December 15th, I called my credit card company and removed my brother as an authorized user. He didn't know he was about to lose his emergency gas and food lifeline. Then I called my insurance and took him off my car plan. Yup. That second-hand Toyota Camry he's been driving around for months? Registered under my name. He thought I forgot. I didn't. He had a grace period until January 1st. But I knew he wouldn't read the fine print until it was too late. December 25th came. Christmas. Everyone was there. Caleb, my nephew, came over to hug me. Poor kid. He had no clue. Dennis was unusually cheerful. I knew he was already counting the money. I'd even brought envelopes with me to make it more fun. After dinner my dad raised a glass. To family, he said. To generosity. Dennis leaned back in his chair. So Grace, he said. About Caleb. I pulled out an envelope and handed it over. He opened it fast. His eyes shifted. Inside wasn't a check. It was a note. Typed neat and to the point. This year I'm giving gifts only to those who don't expect them. I'm also reclaiming what's mine. The car, the card, the control. Merry Christmas. He blinked. Then laughed. What the hell is this? My mom asked what was going on. Dennis stood up, face red, note crumpling in his hand. I stayed seated. Come. Your car insurance expires in 6 days, I said. Your card access is already gone. Caleb can still go to college. You can figure it out like every other parent. Silence. Then yelling. Accusations. My mom looked shocked, my dad furious. But I didn't budge. I had more than ruined their little plan. I had rewritten the entire game. The day after Christmas, I woke up to a phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. 15 missed calls. 7 from my mom, 4 from Dennis, the rest from cousins I barely talk to, and 1 from Aunt Sheila, who usually only calls when someone's in the hospital or pregnant. They moved fast. By noon, the family group chat was lit up like a bonfire. Messages stacked so fast I couldn't even finish one before 3 more popped up. All of them calling me selfish, cruel, cold-hearted, and a few things that didn't even make sense. My mom accused me of traumatizing Caleb. Dennis kept writing variations of "you'll regret this" and "you crossed the line." My dad? Silent. Not one message. Which somehow made it worse. It didn't take long before things got ugly in a different way. My cousin Kelly posted some vague garbage on Facebook. It's always the ones with no family of their own who try to ruin everyone else's. "You'll die alone, sis." Didn't tag me. Didn't have to. Then came the whispers. I went to my local grocery store that weekend. Ran into June, a woman who's known my mom since the early 90s. She leaned in like she was about to tell me I'd won the lottery. "You doing okay? After everything that came out about you and that married man at work?" I looked her dead in the face. "What married man?" She just blinked, then mumbled something and walked away. By the time I got to the parking lot, I knew. My family hadn't just turned against me. They'd started a smear campaign. That story, the one about me and some coworker, was completely made up. Never happened. But in a family like mine, truth doesn't matter. Gossip does. And it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, friends started reaching out with awkward messages. Hey, I heard some things. Just wanted to check in. If you ever need to talk. People assumed I'd done something shameful. That maybe I had snapped. That maybe the family had a point. And that's when I realized, I wasn't just the villain now. I was the scapegoat. The sacrifice. The problem. But I wasn't about to sit around and let it happen. While they kept talking about me, I started making quiet moves. I left the group chat. I blocked Dennis. I blocked our parents. Then I pulled out the spreadsheet I'd been keeping for 6 months. Every dollar I'd ever loaned to Dennis, every expense I'd covered for my parents without so much as a thank you. It totaled more than $47,000. And I printed it. Not to get it back. I knew I never would. I just wanted a reminder, proof, of why I was done. I stopped returning calls. I didn't show up to Caleb's graduation dinner. And most importantly, I started researching apartments outside of North Carolina. Quietly. No social media posts. No conversations about it with anyone. Not even my closest friends. I contacted a realtor in Seattle. Looked into a transfer within my company. There was an opening at their West Coast office. Same job, better pay. New state, new start. I was planning a clean break. Because I knew what was coming next. They would panic. They'd realize I wasn't just angry. I was done. But I didn't expect what happened next. I'd only told one person, my coworker Jenna, about the possible move. She helped me figure out neighborhoods and was the only one I trusted. But someone else found out. Because 2 weeks later my mom showed up at my condo. Uninvited. She knocked like nothing had happened. No text, no warning. Just stood there holding a plastic container of lasagna, like that would make me forget what they'd done. We need to talk, she said. And I could already tell. Someone had leaked my plan. The rumors had flipped the other way now. Not about my personal life. Now they were terrified I was leaving for good. And with me would go the money, the car, the free rides, and every backup plan they'd ever counted on. But they had no idea how far I'd already gone. I let her in. Not because I wanted to. But as I was curious. Curious how my mother was going to spin everything she and the rest of them had done. The lies, the rumors, the Facebook drama, the total character assassination. She sat on the edge of my couch and acted like we were just catching up. 10 minutes of small talk. Lasagna on the table. Smiling like we were still family. Then she dropped it. We know you're moving. I didn't flinch. Just waited. We just want to understand why. You're not thinking clearly, Grace. There was. I'd been downgraded from selfish to unstable. I didn't respond. Just stood there. Then she added, like she was saying something reassuring. Dennis says you're only doing this because you've been feeling lonely. And angry. And maybe confused. Confused. She nodded like this was some kind of intervention. You don't need to move across the country to feel better. You need to be with your family. Where people care about you. And then she pulled something out of her purse. A folded piece of paper. It was a power of attorney form. Dennis had drawn it up. It gave him access to manage my financial accounts, in the event of emotional distress or impaired judgment. He'd written that I had shown erratic behavior, including abandonment of familial duties, financial hostility, and social instability. They were trying to make it legal. To make it look like I was having some kind of breakdown so they could freeze my accounts and keep me from leaving. He was trying to trap me. And the worst part? My dad had already signed as a witness. They were going to file it in January if I didn't get help. I told her to leave. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't threaten. Just told her to get out before I called the police. I shredded the form after she left. But that night I didn't sleep. Because they weren't just trying to stop me anymore. They were trying to take control of me. So I accelerated everything. The next morning I emailed my job and confirmed the transfer to Seattle. Put in notice with my landlord. Paid 3 months up front to break the lease. Hired movers. I even arranged to ship my car across the country instead of driving it. I was done playing safe. But then something strange happened. That Friday I came home from work and saw a car I didn't recognize parked near my condo. Same the next day. Different plate, same model. Then 2 days before the movers were scheduled to arrive, someone tried to get into my building using my name. The front desk told them no. But the guy had said he was my brother. Dennis wasn't giving up. I filed a restraining order the next day. My lawyer said it might not stick, but it was a start. And I made one last move. I scheduled my flight out 3 days earlier than I told anyone. The movers would finish the job without me there. I'd already packed what I needed in 2 suitcases. And when I landed in Seattle at 6:40 a.m., I turned my phone on to 48 new messages. Some begging, some threatening, some just saying, "Come back." But it was too late. I was gone. Or so I thought. The first week in Seattle felt surreal. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet area just outside the city. Gray skies, unfamiliar streets, the smell of rain on concrete. It was the first time in my adult life I woke up without some obligation tied to my family. No group chat pings. No, "Can you send me a quick $200? Texts. No sudden guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. It felt good. Until it didn't. A week after I moved in, I got a letter. Not an email. A physical letter, forwarded from my old address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No return address. Just a printed message. "Seattle won't fix what's wrong with you. You'll come back. You always do." I stared at it for a while. It wasn't signed. But I didn't need a signature. "Dennis." I threw it away, but the feeling stuck. That thing where you know someone's watching even if you can't prove it. I got paranoid. Started double-checking my locks. I even set up a camera by my front door. Nothing showed up for days, so I tried to shake it off. Maybe he just wanted to rattle me. I focused on work. My team welcomed me quickly. I finally told Jenna everything. The letter, the power of attorney stunt, the fake rumors. She told me I should have cut them off years ago. Things were finally smoothing out, until I got a call from HR. Someone had submitted an anonymous report to my company's ethics hotline. They claimed I had lied on my employment transfer paperwork. Said I was leaving the North Carolina office because I'd been caught in a relationship with a married manager. That I'd caused a hostile environment and fled before an internal investigation. It was a copy-paste of the exact rumor my family had spread, now repackaged as an HR concern. They had no proof, of course, because none of it was true. But HR still had to look into it. I had to sit through interviews, explain everything again, rehash my move, my personal life, my reasons for relocating. It dragged on for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of sitting at my desk, wondering if I'd just risked everything to move across the country, only to have it all pulled out from under me because of a vengeful family member. But the investigation closed quietly. No evidence. No issue. Just a note from HR saying I was in the clear. Still, something had changed. I started getting headaches. Couldn't focus like before. Every time I got an email late at night, my stomach dropped. Then one night I got another letter. This one was handwritten. Sloppy penmanship. Multiple pages. It was from my father. He said the family had decided I was no longer welcome. That I'd broken their trust. That I had abandoned Caleb when he needed me most. That I had embarrassed the family with my unstable behavior. And worst of all, they were cutting ties with me officially. The words were ugly. But what hit hardest? He ended it with, "Do not return. You are no longer one of us." That was it. I sat in my kitchen and read it over and over until the ink blurred. My own father had written me off like a cancelled subscription. But something about that moment snapped the fear in me. They had disowned me. But in doing so, they'd finally freed me. I started therapy. Deleted every trace of them from my phone. I stopped checking for letters. I started hiking, taking long walks by the sound, meeting new people. And slowly the silence stopped feeling like a threat. It started feeling like peace. Until 6 months later, I got a message. Not from Dennis. Not from my parents. From Caleb. One line. "They want to see you. Just for a few days. They said they're sorry." I stared at Caleb's message for a long time. I hadn't heard from him since the night everything blew up at Christmas. And unlike the rest of them, I never held a grudge against him. He was a kid, caught between a manipulative father and a family that treated guilt like currency. His message was short. Simple. "They want to see you. Just for a few days. They said they're sorry." At first I didn't respond. But I thought about it every day for a week. Then I finally asked, "Is this really from you? Or is someone telling you to say that?" He wrote back almost instantly. "It's from me. I promise. They told me to reach out because they don't think you'll respond to them. But I wouldn't have sent it if I didn't mean it." I told him I'd think about it. And I did. For 2 weeks. Eventually, I booked a 3-day trip back to North Carolina. Not for them. For Caleb. I didn't tell anyone else I was coming. I flew in late, got a hotel near downtown, and met Caleb for coffee the next morning. He looked older. Tired maybe. But real. Sincere. He didn't push me to go see the others. Just talked. About college. About feeling caught in the middle. About missing the version of the family we both used to believe existed. Finally, I asked, what made them change their minds? He hesitated. Then said, "They didn't. They just want the money back. But I think you should still come. If not for them, then to say what you really want to say." That was the most honest answer I could have hoped for. So the next day I showed up at my parents' house. I didn't even knock. I walked in like I used to back when I thought I belonged there. They were all sitting in the living room. My dad, my mom, Dennis, even his wife who usually stays out of the mess. Caleb stood near the hallway, arms folded. No one said anything at first. Then Dennis stood up like he was hosting a meeting. Thanks for coming. I waited. My dad spoke next. We've had time to reflect. Things got out of hand. My mom added, families fight. But we can fix this. I didn't say a word. Then Dennis handed me a folder. I opened it. Inside was a document titled, Voluntary Family Contribution Agreement. It laid out terms, specific amounts of money I'd contribute each year to Caleb's education, family emergencies, and general household support. A minimum of $22,000 annually. I looked at them one by one. They were serious. My dad actually said, "This is how we move forward. It's a gesture of good faith." That's when I realized this had never been about an apology. They'd brought me back to re-establish the pipeline, the cash, the convenience. They thought I was softened by distance, by time, by silence. I stood up, didn't yell, didn't rip the paper, didn't even smirk. I just looked at Caleb. "You knew this was coming?" He shook his head. "I swear I didn't." I walked out, got back to the hotel, booked an earlier flight. At 5:40 a.m. the next morning, I was back in the airport. But just as I was boarding, I got one final text. From Dennis. "Nice seeing you. Don't worry. I'll tell everyone what really happened between you and that VP in Seattle. Bet they'd love to hear it." I blocked him. I didn't cry on the plane. I didn't feel anything really. Until I landed. That's when I opened my laptop, logged into my legal doc service, and uploaded every piece of evidence I had. The fake power of attorney, the texts, the fake HR complaint, the letter from my dad disowning me, the new contribution agreement. And I forwarded them all to my lawyer with one sentence. I want nothing tying me to them. Ever again. The first update. 6 months went by. By then, my life in Seattle had finally started to feel like mine. I'd made real friends. I hiked every weekend. I went to dinners where no one asked me to Venmo them afterward or hint at needing just a little help until Friday. My job got better too. I got promoted. I started dating someone, cautiously, and I told him everything early on. For once, I didn't feel like I had to hide who I was or where I came from. My family. I hadn't heard a word. Until late August. I got an email. From an address I didn't recognize at first. But it was Caleb. It was long. No manipulation, no guilt. Just honest words. He said things had changed since I left. That Dennis had been forced to get a full-time job after my financial support stopped. That my mom had gotten sick a few months earlier. Nothing terminal, but enough to shake the foundation they thought would always be there. And then he wrote this. "I think they're ready to admit they treated you horribly. They asked me to reach out. They want you to come back. Just for a few days. Not to fix anything. Just to say they're sorry." I stared at that email like it was in another language. They never apologized. That wasn't who they were. Apologies meant admitting you were wrong, and my parents had never done that once in my life. I didn't respond right away. 2 days later I got a letter. Handwritten. This time from my mom. She said she was sorry for letting Dennis treat me like a bank. She said she believed the rumors because it was easier than facing what they'd done. And at the end she said, "You were the strong one, Grace. That's why we used you. I hate that it took losing you to see that." For the first time in a long time I didn't feel angry. Felt tired. But something in me wanted to go. Not for closure. Not even out of curiosity. Just to see if they'd really changed. Or if this was just another trick dressed up in new words. So I went. 2 weeks later I flew back. No one met me at the airport. I didn't expect them to. I stayed at the same hotel, didn't tell them my room number. When I showed up at the house, Caleb answered the door. He didn't smile or hug me. Just nodded and stepped aside. Inside it was different. Not cleaner. Not quieter. Just heavier. Like the place was carrying the weight of everything they'd done. Dennis came into the room and didn't say anything for a full minute. Then he looked at me and said, "You were right. About all of it." That was it. No excuses. No qualifiers. My mom came out of the kitchen. She looked older. Smaller. Like the version of her I remembered had been drained out and replaced with someone who'd finally stopped pretending she had it all under control. And my dad? He didn't say much. But before I left that day, he pulled me aside and said one thing. "You don't owe us anything. But we owe you the truth." I'm sorry. I stayed 3 days. No one asked for money. No one handed me a contract. There was no talk about the past unless I brought it up. It wasn't warm. It wasn't comfortable. But it was real. On the last night before I left, Caleb walked me to the car. He said, "I hope you come back again. But even if you don't, I'm glad you came this time." I drove to the hotel in silence. That night I cried for the first time since Christmas. Not out of sadness or relief. Just release. Because I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't need them to be different. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy for walking away. Now I still live in Seattle. And I still keep my distance. But the power they had over me? Gone. And for the first time in my life, I'm not the one chasing peace anymore. They are.